Welcome to NAIFA's Advisor Today podcast series, where we focus on how financial advisors work, live, and give to their local communities and our greater financial services industry. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hi, everyone out there. This is Chris Gandy, one of your co-hosts of Advisors Today podcast, where we focus on growth and development and all things financial services for the betterment of the industry with our wonderful co-host, Suzanne Kirawan. Hi, Suzanne.
Hi, Chris.
So good to see you.
You too.
Oh, we see your son's doing fantastic things. So we'll get a chance to talk about how wonderful he's doing. And so it's great to see you. Who's our, before we get to our wonderful guest, Miss Laurie Adams, can I ask the question, who's our sponsor for today's program?
Yeah, actually, it is Advisor Today. Advisor Today is actually the group that puts out the 4 Under 40 awards. And I know we have that at the national level and many states have it. It's all under the Advisor Today umbrella, which is part of this platform, which includes our print magazine, our digital magazine, our podcast, our webinar series, and of course, our 4 Under 40 winners. And so applications and nominations are now open. Just 2 more weeks, though. You got to get them in before August, the end of August. And those 4 people will be crowned, if you will, and named and given all sorts of love and publicity at this year's National Leadership Conference happening December 3rd through 5th in Washington, D.C. So we're looking forward to that.
So with no further ado, we get a chance to welcome a wonderful guest. Some of you may know her by name. Some of you may know her by face. Today we're going to get to know her and some of the things she's done with the industry and some insight. So happy day, Miss Laurie Adams. How are you doing today?
I am well, Chris. Thank you very much. I'm really excited to be with you and Suzanne.
So today we'll get a chance to kind of talk all things, everything. So let's jump right into it. So tell us a little bit, those who don't know you, right? Those who don't know you, can you tell us a little bit about kind of yourself and what you've done specifically in the industry as kind of through leadership as it deals with NAIFA, and you've kind of broken down some barriers.
Well, thanks for that. And I've been able to break down some barriers largely because of my relationship with NAIFA. And that's something that I'm sure as we continue our conversation today, we'll get into a little more detail on that. But I've been doing this for a long time. It's really important to know that I started my career actually in 1982 in Davenport, Iowa, at the beginning of the worst recession to hit the Midwest since the Great Depression. And actually, it's still considered the worst recession in spite of the fact we call the financial service crisis the Great Recession. The ag credit crisis recession is what was going on in 1982. And that's significant because Davenport, Iowa is one of the Quad Cities, and it's where all of the giant farm equipment companies lived. It's where they were made. And so there was certainly Caterpillar and John Deere, but there was J.I. Case and Alcoa to make the material. The International Harvester was a company that was very large in the Quad Cities. And the day that I entered the business, April 1st of 1982, 5,000 people at International Harvester lost their jobs. And it was it was the beginning of essentially a decade where a lot of people left the area because there were no jobs. So I started this career not knowing how difficult this career is, but I needed a job. And I had retail sales experience, some hospitality experience, but I had just moved to town. I had no natural market. I was very young. And I was hired by a general agent that had just lost his entire sales force to evidently a mutiny, and didn't know that at the time either. So
ignorance is bliss on many a case.
Ignorance is bliss, right? But I still remember that first appointment. I would drive anywhere. If somebody would agree to speak to me because I had no natural market, I would drive 2 hours to do an orphan policy review. Anything I could do to be in front of people. And that was, believe it or not, that gas was actually more expensive on an inflation-adjusted basis back then than it got to be last year here in the United States. So it was extremely expensive to make those trips, but I believed what I had been taught, that it was a numbers game, and that the more people that I saw, the more opportunity I would have to actually sell something. The old rule of call 10 people, you'll get 3 appointments and 1 person will buy. And that rule really still applies today. It's just that you find those people in different ways than you did 40 years ago. So that first appointment that I had, I'm sitting at a home in Rock Island, Illinois, at the kitchen table. I've got the baby on my lap. I've got pets at my feet. Mom's trying to finish up dinner. Dad's just gotten home from work at International Harvester. And I went through my presentation and I watched him swallow hard and say, you know, what you proposed looks really good, but I just lost my job today. And I had that conversation again and again and again that first year. And so it wasn't just that I should have failed because I didn't have a natural market and was brand new to the business. I should have failed because of economic circumstances. And I firmly believe the reason I did not is because that general agent enrolled me in LUTC. I took an LUTC personal lines course, which back then was a 26-week course. And I joined NAIFA's predecessor, the National Association of Life Underwriters. And I started to learn the business. I learned the business through LUTC. I learned the business by going to absolutely every single one of the meetings that I could attend so that I could learn more. And it really set me on a path of commitment for professional development because it was my lifeline. And it's one of the reasons why there's two reasons in this story that are important. It's one of the reasons that I remain committed to NAIFA to this day, that I firmly believe it's more important now than ever. But because of the need for professional development, because there's so much more to learn than when I started in the business. But the other thing is that first appointment convinced me that there are people from all walks of life need good financial advice. So as my career progressed over the years, I actually, as a multi-line agent, because I became a multi-line agent after the first year, went on to earn my certified financial planner certification so that I could be the best resource possible to my clients. But I still continued to not set minimums and continue to talk to people from all walks of life. And it's provided a great career for me.
So let's rewind the tape. Let's go back to the beginning. And what would you say, if those who are out there listening, what would you say were the 2 things you told yourself on a day-to-day basis, or a couple things you told yourself on a day-to-day basis just to make it through? Because obviously, as you said, things were kind of stacked against you. It shouldn't economically make sense, but you're here and you're still in the business. So any insights on that, you know, I know it's been a while, I know it's been some time, but share with us what you were telling yourself and what you would share with other young people going through that same type of struggle.
Well, it definitely helps that, you know, that my personality has that overachiever tendency. And so, you know, teach me something and then I will take it as far as I can possibly take it. And as soon as it became obvious to me in taking the LUTC training that knowledge could be put into action. That's the beauty of the LUTC curriculum, is that you learn something and then you go practice it. And then you come back and you talk about it with a group of your peers. And then you learn something else and you go practice it. And, you know, and you just keep repeating that until you're building on that body of knowledge. And so I believed that I just had to see enough people to survive until I got smart enough to really be an invaluable resource to my clients and to my potential clients. And so I just kept telling myself that it was a process, that as long as I kept seeing people, that the process would work out for me. And as long as I could add some kind of value to our relationship that they couldn't get anyplace else. And so it took me a while to understand how to articulate that. Definitely took me, because, and of course, when you're early in your career, you want to show people how much you know. And so I learned that that's not going to help, that it was about finding out what was important to them so that we could establish a relationship. And then the best way to distinguish myself from the competition was by being a better resource. And so and my involvement with NAILU at the time and with LUTC set the expectation that what professionals do is they continue to get more educated. And so I would see these different people that were clearly very successful that would take the time to share. And that's really one of the secrets of NAIFA is we really do stand on the backs of giants. It's just remarkable. The people that are extremely successful, extremely busy, that continue to show up to serve in leadership at NAIFA, but also continue to come to the conferences, continue to donate time to committees to make us better and to make us a better resource so that our constituents can become better resources for their clients. So a NAIFA meeting pretty early in my career, I heard somebody say, and it's a phrase you've all heard, but you might not have heard the twist that this person put on it. And this clicked with me because it seemed to be absolutely what I was trying to do and who I was trying to become. And what he said was, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. But then they care a lot. And I was really good at showing people that I cared. But the idea that once they knew I cared, that if they knew that they could come to me for any financial questions, that I could set myself apart from the competition. So that's what I kept working on.
What I hear also is, I know you classified yourself as an overachiever, but a lot of overachievers, if there's not a lot else to them, they would have given up because they would have been like, I'm not achieving. Does that make sense? But I think the piece that you're saying is that you're a problem solver. Because we were talking, I think you enjoy that problem solving. So it's that combination. And what I see in the characteristics of people that do really well within our business is that they, yes, are an overachiever. They love to win, but they love to solve problems. Like they're curious. They have the curiosity, and they're just they just are bottomless pits for wanting to self-improve and figure stuff out. And that's why they're interested in people. They're like, whoa, what's your story, right? And then, yes. So I think you're saying that one of your gifts is that you're probably making an implicit promise to that prospective client or that client that you're saying, I might not have the knowledge right now, but I know that I can figure that out, and I will go seek that out, right, and leave no stone unturned to help serve you. And I think that's an important point. That's a really important point.
Thank you, Suzanne. That's really insightful. I can tell you it is completely accurate. In fact, one of my most favorite things to do is jigsaw puzzles. I love them so much, I won't have one in my house or my office. Because if it is there,
You're magnetized to it.
I will not be able to walk by without touching it. And then it will be, 30 minutes later. And so it is absolutely about problem solving. And when clients figure out that you are that problem solver, they love it. They absolutely love it, and they value it. And that just becomes, more and more important as much as messages get diffused today, it just becomes more and more important, to distinguish yourself.
And I'd probably argue it's even more in demand nowadays, because there's so many people that are just like, I don't care, I don't know, you know what I mean? Just that's very unfortunately, it's very that complacency is everywhere.
Yeah,
I think that's true. I can tell you that in the early part of my career, so I started my career in the Quad Cities, as I mentioned, and then after almost 10 years in the business, we relocated. We moved from the Quad City area. We only moved 90 miles away to the Peoria, Illinois area. But when we did that, I crossed a regional boundary with the company that I was contracted with. And they were going to make me start all over without any of my clients and with a different contract even. And so it was a good time to look around. And I was already teaching professional ed classes on the side. I was adjunct faculty with St. Ambrose University, teaching professional ed classes. And a guy that was in the audience did management testing for Country Financial, the company that I'm with today, I've been with for the last 30 years. And he said, let me just send you a test. He goes, I know the person in the training department, because I thought I didn't want to be an agent anymore. I thought I didn't want to be an advisor. And so he sent me the test. He forwarded it to the trainer at Country, and they called me and they said, wow, this is great, but we can't hire you as the trainer unless you've been a successful agent with us. It didn't matter if I'd been a successful agent someplace else. And frankly, that's what's going on in the industry, because believe me, I was like, that's okay, thanks, I'll look someplace else. Got the same answer every place. And so I chose Country because I thought that they shared similar values about taking care of people from all walks of life, which was very important to me. And then I went on to build another business without any natural market, because we had just moved to town. And I grew up in Nebraska originally, so I was going the wrong direction to get in touch with my natural market. And and they offered me a training job 3 times, and various degrees of training jobs, and I just didn't want to do it anymore, because I was loving taking care of people in a way that was making a difference in their lives. And about that same time, there was a real change in my business, because in the beginning I was really focused on building the property and casualty side of my business. In 1997, I led the company in sales of both auto insurance policies and home insurance policies. But shortly after that, there was a really significant change in our industry, and it was one that I understood really well because I was going to NAIFA meetings where we got to discuss and learn this, and it was the Financial Services Modernization Act. And that completely changed the competition. It changed who we compete with, where people can get their financial services. That was the goal of that legislation, was that one of the senators who sponsored it dreamed of financial supermarkets that consumers could go to get everything that they need. And it didn't exactly pan out that way, but all of a sudden you weren't just competing with other insurance companies, you were competing with banks, and you were competing with stockbrokers, with investment firms. And so it became that much more important to get that much smarter, and to also understand how to help people wade through all of these solicitations that they were receiving. And so I pivoted at that point, and because it created an opportunity for me, because I had not been able to work in the investment world because of the way that we were organized, and now the opportunity presented. So I went ahead, I was already a CLU, and I sat for my CFP board exam. Back in the day, you could actually challenge the board exam if you were a CLU, a CPA, or an attorney. And so as that window was closing, I took the test. I'm really proud that I did it. I passed it on the first try, but I believe it was because of the work I was already doing with clients, and because of the coursework that I was teaching with the professional ed classes. And then I had to reinvent really myself again with my clients, because they were very used to just thinking about me as auto and home insurance. So I was able to redefine it for them to understand that it wasn't that I was their auto insurance agent or their home insurance agent. I was their risk manager. And that's the foundation of financial planning. And so helping clients understand that risk management is the relationship that we had, and now I can help them in other areas of their financial life. It was magical. I've discussed, this has been when I've presented at other state conventions, or I've presented at national, it's largely been about this topic. And I know that we've got plenty of multi-line members who are always looking for ways to improve cross-selling. And I'm telling you right now, it's the number one way that I can advise, is to reposition yourself as a risk manager, and then tie that directly to the choices that people make in their other financial decisions.
Interesting you say that. I've heard that every decision is a retirement decision. Right? regardless of what it is, right? If you're going out to eat,
Exactly.
it's a decision. Whether you are or not making a choice is a decision. You mentioned a couple, I just want to highlight, talked about that you followed a process, is that you saw yourself as an overachiever, and part of that is visualization, your ability to see yourself bigger than where you are today, right? You're like, I see myself here, I see myself here. So many times it's hard to see people. We're in a space where it's hard for people to see. Sometimes we have to hand them our rose-colored glasses so they can see, like, here's what it looks like on the other side. But talk to me a little bit about your proudest moment in the business. I mean, you've been in the business a period of time. You're now starting to have some success on the as an agent side. You're doing some teaching. But share with us your proudest moment in your career that you can look back and say, so far. Now, I have so many things.
No.
Things.
It's a great question.
But that you are proud of.
It's so interesting because there definitely are things that come to mind when you say that, and again, it's actually tied with NAIFA because it's and I think this is an important message for some of our listeners that sometimes feel like NAIFA doesn't look like them, because I can tell you in 1982, NAIFA or NAILU didn't look like me. It didn't look like me at all, because there just weren't a lot of women in the business. When I took LUTC, I think we had 22 people in class, and there were 2 women. And the other woman was somebody who was married to an insurance agent manager. And so she was somebody who the business was already in their house before she entered the business. Doesn't mean she wasn't awesome. Doesn't mean that she didn't really carve out her own place. But she at least could see the career. She could see the success that could come with the career. And I can guarantee you, my family, when I first said I was going to become an insurance agent, they would check me when I would come home on vacations and family visits to make sure I didn't have any bumps or bruises, because they had no concept whatsoever that this could be not just a good career, but a great career. And so I remember my first year as a member of NAILU going to one of the local meetings, and there were this vibrant group of people before the meeting started, and there was a young woman in the group, and it's like, who are those people? They just seem to have so much energy, and they seem to have a really great relationship. And I'm trying, again, problem solving, Suzanne, you really hit the nail on the head with that. I'm trying to figure out in my brain what the deal is. Well, they were the board. They were the NAIFA board in Davenport, Iowa. And that young woman was somebody who had been, she was with a life-only company, and she was on the board and was in charge of a certain committee. But all of us, it was like, how do I get to be one of those people? There's that overachiever side, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And how do I get to be one of those people? Well, I volunteered for a committee. I started showing up for events. I started to be more involved. And when we moved here to the Peoria area, of course, I'm changing my membership, and I joining a new local again where I don't know anybody. But as I transferred my membership in, one of the board members said, "Wow, we see that you're an LUTC grad. Tell us about your career." And when I did, they said, "Oh, well, how would you like to be the education chair?" And so that started my NAIFA leadership career. But I wanted to be, right. I wanted to be, because I had seen those vibrant colleagues that had this common goal to put on a great program for the rest of us. And so I started out on the local board, and eventually became the local president, and eventually am very proud of this. And Chris probably knows this, because I think it's been discussed with both of us being from Illinois. I was the first female president of NAIFA Illinois. I'm one of only 2 female presidents that NAIFA Illinois has had. But that was, for me, that was huge. It was huge because back in the day, I I didn't think that was even possible. And I can tell you my first national convention that I went to when I was in local leadership, it was in Philadelphia. It was a great convention. And I went to the first timers orientation, and it was a woman who did the orientation. She was a former trustee. And I went back and I told the state exec, I met her. And she goes, oh gosh, she's a legend. And again, it was like, how do I get to be one of those people? Now, full disclosure, I don't want to be a trustee. I serve NAIFA National in other capacity, still back in that professional development side. I'm really proud of that. I'm really proud that I was one of the authors of the LACP curriculum and one of the test writers. Very proud of that. Very proud to be chairing the committee that is reworking the LUTC curriculum to make it more modern, and working with some true legends in the business on that. So a lot of, if you're doing this business right, it's lonely. If you are actually really working your business as an advisor, as an insurance agent, the level of focus that it takes, it's on your shoulders, it is lonely. And that's what NAIFA has been for me, is it has been a place where I can go and I can see people now who do look like me. And I want a whole lot more people who don't look like me, because I want our arms to open as wide and embrace as many, many people of all walks of life, of all cultures, because the more variety that we get, the more diverse we are, the richer the experience is for all of us.
Miss Laurie, let me ask a couple questions. And I want to go on this journey with you. When you and I have talked, so cheating a little bit, but most people don't know that you're actually a thinker. I've had conversations with you, and I'm like, okay, no, she's like, it's not just you believe it, but you've thought about it before you have that dialogue. You're not just saying, oh, well, here's what I think and here's what I think. Not only do you have facts and kind of intuition, but you've also got vision. So share with us a little bit about where that came from. Where did that come from? Because it's not something everybody's born with. It came from somewhere. I don't know if it started when you were little, or it's something you've kind of honed as you've gone through communication and education, but where does that come from, and how do you continue to sharpen that?
Thank you very much. It's a lovely compliment, Chris, and I really do appreciate it, especially coming from someone like you who has tremendous vision. Part of it is who I was from the beginning. I always thought that there was something special, that there was something that I was supposed to do. I always thought that there was more. I said that I made the comment about the overachiever thing earlier. And when I'm not somebody who chases trophies. I've been the national champion for my company. In fact, I tripled the previous record. The record still exists. The record will always exist because they changed the way they count things. I've been the runner-up. I've been in the top 10 a number of times. I am a significant leader on the production side, and that isn't why I do what I do. I do what I do to take care of people, and I honestly believe that it's the strangest business in the world to have a calling for. But I really believe that this is what I was put on this earth to do. And the way that is validated is when I'm able to watch the worry fall off of people's shoulders. When I'm able to help them understand their financial situation better. I like to say that I help them negotiate a truce between what their financial reality is today and where they want to go. But when I can help someone that a lot of other people would overlook, and help them achieve financial security. It just is so rewarding to me, and part of that is because I grew up in a household, a skilled laborer dad. Mom didn't work outside the home. I'm the oldest of 5 kids born in 6 years, and there are no twins in there. My dad had diagnosed with multiple sclerosis when he was 25, before my 5th sibling was born. My mom's a recovering alcoholic. It's one of those things where it would be so easy to point to things and go, oh, well, that's my excuse why I didn't do this. But instead, it always made me so grateful for the opportunities that if I'm somebody who can't stand watching somebody squander an opportunity, because opportunities are so precious. And the more people you meet, the more opportunities present. And when a client I'm the first, and I had this happen, and it's so heartbreaking. It was just last year, clients lost an adult son. They found out their adult son living in another city was found dead. And it's a Friday night. It's actually my husband's birthday. We were getting ready to go out to dinner, and I'm in Nebraska, and my phone rings, and it's this client, and they say, so we didn't know who else to call. We don't know what to do. We didn't know who else to call. And they're people that I've worked with closely for a lot of years. I have somebody that was a newer client last year that actually had a house account that he decided that maybe he'd really like to have an advisor. And so it was transferred to me, and we did some work together. And this is a very high-powered self-employed person, very detail-oriented. But he's somebody who grew up in a poor household, and is somebody who just, even though he's fine financially, he just could not relax. And I worked with he and his wife, and got this lovely email a couple of days later that explained to me that he'd never felt the way he felt right now, because he just didn't think it was possible for he and his wife to enjoy their money. And so his wife's really glad that they met me, but
the permission, yeah.
And I think part of that too comes, my husband was largely raised by a single parent. His dad left when he was 2, and she worked as an executive assistant in very small companies. So she ended up coming to live with us. She lived with us for 13 and a half years, and I was her primary caregiver the last 5 years of her life. I had a 7-year-old and a 75-year-old in the house at the same time that I was building this business that I'm in today. And I remember all of those things keenly, and recognize that there were opportunities that were presented in the midst of some really tough times that now have created this just extraordinary blessing for my family. And so I think that's the vision, Chris. I think it's that having seen that the choices that we make can have such profound effects down the road if we leave our hearts open and we leave our minds open.
That's beautiful, Laurie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, what it reminds me, you say that, but I'm seeing like a symbiotic relationship, because I think, Laurie, you're putting out what I would only deem as like financial grace. And so I think you're then getting it back from the clients, right? Because it sounds like a very symbiotic.
Oh my goodness.
It is. I know. It's what you're saying, though. It's because you're coming from that grateful attitude. But I think also you're so open to it, and you're not coming with any preconceived ideas of anything. And so, but I would only call that financial grace. You're probably able to actually give that to people, which is more powerful, I think, than saying like psychological, or peace of mind we hear all the time. That's a little bit of a stepped up version. I think so.
I've never heard that term, but I promise you,
I just made that up.
Again now.
No, we can all do a book on that. Yeah,
that's what I try to do, and I've never ever considered it that way, and that is so. I have chills. I have chills right now, because you have so perfectly described what I try to live.
It's interesting to see universe has a way of rewarding those who give the most to it. So, the universe is looking out for you. Let's shift gears about the future, shall we? So where do you see the future for involvement with NAIFA? And then what's in the future for you in your career? Let's listen to.
Okay, that's great. Future for me with NAIFA is we got to finish up LUTC. Brandon Burnett has been the boy, talk about herding cats. He's been the guy trying to make sure that we get everything going the right direction, and he's a great partner. And as I mentioned, some wonderful volunteers on the committee. We've got part one done, and we're fast forward. We expect to have everything. It's in beta testing now, and we expect to have everything rolling by the end of this year. That is our goal. Is that the people will be able to have access to all parts by the end of this year, and cannot wait to reinvigorate the program and introduce it to a new generation, I think, of advisors that don't know yet that they need it, because I really do believe that it absolutely was the foundation for my success, and I know I'm not alone by any stretch of the imagination. But as for me, I don't have any. I have no plans after that. I've chaired the governance committee. I served on governance for 6 years. I chaired member benefits. Obviously I'm involved with this committee. So I've served a lot of different roles, and am happy being a contributor. I don't need that. The title. I don't need to serve in a different capacity, because I think I've added more value from what I can bring to the table, doing the committee work that I do. But I really do. I'm actually serving back in state leadership. This is the busiest time in my career. I have more assets under care than anybody else in my company. So it is a very busy time in my career, but I'm still devoting the time not just to my national committee work, but also I've returned to state NAIFA work and serving in a role that we used to call the national committee person, and now that role is gone. But in Illinois, at least, the board likes the idea of having a senior counsel. So I'm the senior counsel. I'm the person that helps people that are newer to the leadership understand how things work and how to better accomplish things instead of just going straight at it with your horns down. And so it's probably a little more speaking, do a little more of that as those opportunities present. I've got actually one scheduled in for September. But for my career, I really think I don't expect to retire anytime soon. I really expect to continue working, for another 20 years. And that's the beauty of this career is, will it look different? And I'm self-employed. I'm affiliated with a company, but I'm self-employed, and that makes a difference because, as you know, Chris, you're the same. You choose when you work. You choose with whom you work. You choose how many staff people you have. And I'm in a state of change right now with all of that. And honestly, for the first time, am going to be, running my own shop with no other advisor, sharing decisions. And I'm very excited about what the future holds, because I really believe that people need us more than they've needed us for some time. There's too many information sources out there. There are too many people coming at them saying, what, this stuff's easy. You can figure it out on your own if you just buy my newsletter, or if you just join my club to do this or do that or whatever. And they can't possibly learn it enough unless they make it a full-time hobby job. But they also don't realize that most of the time people saying that, I can teach you how to do that, are not looking out for them at all. They're just looking to sell them something else. And so I think people finding, and that's why referral business is so important. It's why really setting ourselves up differently as those resources, as those problem solvers, creates amazing opportunities. Back when I was teaching professional education classes, it never occurred to me that I had prospects in the audience because everybody had an insurance license. And some of my very best students in those years are clients now, because either they left the business or they really weren't ever in the business. They were just required to have a license for some other reason. So it is being known as a great resource makes a huge difference in what people tell other people about you. And I want to be here to honestly capitalize on that.
So, what's really interesting is that you've gone through leadership, you've kind of visualized and put yourself in a position, and ultimately now you say another 20 years. You can have my business if I'm still doing this in 20 years. I'm going to give it all I got for the next.
I will remember that.
Okay. When you start to look at, because you will get to a place where you say, okay, I would like to succeed my practice, my vision of what I built, my seed of what I built. I'd like to visualize what that looks like for the next group of people to take this over and continue to run with it.
Yes.
What are the characteristics that those people need to embrace to be a part of that ecosystem and that culture that you're going to be building independently, kind of interdependently within the group and the organization you're a part of?
That's a great question. And it is something I think about. And it's important because honestly, clients ask that question. You reach a certain age and people are like, so you're not going to retire anytime soon, are you? Or, how much longer do you think you'll be wanting to do this? And I do have a succession plan, but it is a loose framework at this point. The commitment that I make to my clients is when I think that I want to slow down, when I think that I want to make some changes, that I commit to, for at least 5 years, having hired an individual or individuals, because it may take individuals, that would have my same values and my same knowledge. And that those people, they would work right next to me with the clients so that when I did, hopefully, very gracefully fade away, that they don't miss a step. They don't notice a change in the experience. And so it may be, I know my skill set, same as yours, Chris, for sure, and other people that we know in this business. But generally, people they have a tendency to kind of tilt toward the analytical side, or they tilt toward the relationship side. And I know every test that anybody ever gave me, they were always a little freaked out when they get my results because it's so evenly distributed for me. And so finding that person, it will be hard. I actually gave birth to that person, but he's not thinking that a career in this business is what he's got, in his future. And we'll see if he changes his mind later on. But he's a communication director for a nonprofit in Tallahassee, Florida, and he's doing great work. It's called the Able Trust, and they promote inclusivity for disabled people in the workplace. And so he's got a great mission of his own right now. But I have the benefit of, for almost 20 years, my hobby was coaching high school speech and debate. And my husband and I did it together in Illinois. We started when our son was in high school. And then I persuaded my husband to leave the hospitality industry and go back to college. And he became a high school English teacher and speech and debate coach. And so we did that for a dozen years together, and super proud to say that we won the state championship 6 years after we took over the team, and we're the only school outside of the Chicago suburbs to win the Illinois state championship in speech since 1980. So it's something that, you work with a lot of dynamic young people, and some of them like to stay in touch with you. And so it may be that some of those young people that we coached, might, as they work their way through their careers, might find themselves heading this direction. So I think I'll actually be okay finding people that have the same set of values, if only because they spent a whole lot of time with me and choose to continue to spend time with me because we share those values. But it is important to be visualizing that. You're absolutely right. And to be able to let clients know that you're not just going to disappear on them.
My clients have all said the same thing. Okay. So when something, like, when's that happening? Right? When something happens to you, who do we call? And you do it the right way. It's a truly selfless opportunity, because you then start to talk about what you created and go to anyone, because the plan supersedes the person.
Absolutely.
This is bigger than me, right? This is, take this plan, take it off the shelf, and take it to anybody and tell them to execute exactly what Gandy told me to do, and it'll work, right? And so I doing a lot of the same things. Suzanne, I just heard the fact that we have a person here who can actually help with our mission of communicating the message, formulating message to our constituents and to our audience that we haven't utilized her resources and her capability, speech and debate.
Yeah. You know what's funny is I think, and Suzanne, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that you and I were actually were almost worked together in this capacity almost 2 decades ago. That when NAIFA first formed the communication committee, and I think that you were one of the people that was considering going to work for NAIFA at that time and chose a different opportunity, and then came along afterwards.
Oh my God! So, yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, NAIFA's been mentioned like 3 times before I ever. Yeah. So back there.
Isn't that funny? Yeah. No, because that's another one of those things I forgot to say I was proud of. I was the first communication chair for NAIFA National. So it makes sense, Chris. You're right. It's definitely a love. It's how my husband and I met. We met in college debate. So talk about lively discussions in our household.
Right. That's great.
But it is. We have a lot of really talented people in this organization. It's really something, the way, and that's what's neat. It's neat when you especially when you work on the national committees, and you're meeting people from other areas. You get to know, as you said, Suzanne, what makes that person tick, and the different qualities that everybody brings to the table.
Oh, for sure. We're like America's Got Talent. We're like Renaissance people. Everybody's got like multiple, skills and talents. It's amazing.
Yep.
Laurie, I think you say something though that's so important, is we have to have the ability to identify the next 10 to 20 years of leadership now, and start to teach fundamentals of the communication of what was, what it is, and embracing that skill set there, which most people don't have. I still work on constantly, is the ability to communicate and articulate a message through words, right? And our ability to do that with facts behind it, right? And so
absolutely
super important, because it gets overlooked. It's one of the fundamentals in sales and in the business that we're in, our ability to articulate who we are, what we do, and the value we bring.
It is so critical. And I think that ties into, your questions about vision though, too, is I think, especially when we have this, this wonderful collection of Renaissance people that we can tap into, and, to create, the value proposition, that is NAIFA, and, not your father's NAIFA or not your mother's NAIFA or whomever, but that it actually is an organization with vision that is working fast and furiously to become as relevant, if not more relevant, than they've ever been, because there's no training departments anymore at companies. That people get hired and they get put in front of a computer to do modules. And so the ability to interact with with people that have been there before you and can share their stories and can give you a tip. And, you can read something 1,000 times and then meet somebody who says the same thing. And you're like, oh my gosh, that's what it was talking about. Yeah. And so the more we can connect our members, the more we can connect people in this industry, again, the better it becomes for all of us. And the next big thing will be, we're going to be eliminated by artificial intelligence. I don't think so, because it's the heart. It's what drives us, that makes the difference in what we deliver, because people are bored by facts. There's actually communication research being done right now that indicates that people are that, and Suzanne said this, that whatever, don't care, that they're checking out because they're just so overwhelmed by facts everywhere, and they don't know how to discern which ones matter to their lives. We've got the opportunity to be the discernment, both with our clients and with our colleagues.
Laurie, we got to have you back. Suzanne, we have to make sure we are on the clock. And so do you have any final words before I send her to the speed round? And then she has some final words for us before, if I have some lightning in a bottle.
I would just say thank you. It's been a great time to spend with you as always, Laurie. So yeah, let's do lightning round.
Thank you. And I'm forever grateful for your very kind observation that really helps me. That will definitely help me articulate what I try to do.
So the lightning round, we came up with this. And again, I wish we had sound effects. One day we're going to have sound effects.
One day. Yeah.
Pew, pew, pew.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the goal of this is that, this is a fast round. So the goal of this is whatever comes top of mind, just say it, and no right or wrong answer. Things I'm not going to ask you about. I'm not going to ask you about politics. What you did, ask you, did you really pass that time? I'm not going to ask you those things. Simple stuff, right? Uh-huh. And so if you're ready to go,
I am.
The questions. Okay, let's start out with something simple. Ready? Your favorite food?
Oh my goodness. That's actually hard. Pasta. I'll say pasta.
Okay. And your maiden name?
Teft. T-E-F-F-T.
See how easy that was?
Yeah, that's unusual. Yeah.
So let's go. What advice would you give to the 40 under 40 group of people?
Oh my gosh, you've only just begun.
You've only just begun. From the top, you were the NAIFA president, right? As a NAIFA Illinois president. If you as a NAIFA Illinois president, what would you tell someone who has the seat of the president for a state?
Listen.
I like that.
Don't just hear, listen. The more that we listen to what people are trying to tell us, the better decisions you make.
Your favorite quote? This is coming from the debate. Your favorite quote?
My favorite quote is a communication quotation. It's from a diplomat from the 1960s. Can't tell you his name. And it is, I know you think you heard what I said, but I think that what you heard is not what I meant to say. And it's something that it's great for relationships. It's great for clients. It's why we always have to be testing to make sure that our message is getting across. But it definitely came from my debate, dealing with my debate husband, that we're two relatively smart people. We shouldn't have that much trouble, coming to simple decisions. And it's because what I think you heard is not what I meant to say.
Right. I think we ask that to our clients. What did you hear me say? And they say something that lead. They're like, whoa. Okay, last couple questions here. Okay, so they get a little bit harder. Okay. If you could go back in time and have dinner with anybody, and this is such an interesting question. You go back and have dinner with anyone in history, whether they passed away, they've left us, or they're still here. Who would it be and why?
It would be Joan of Arc. Because she definitely was a trailblazer who was compelled. She was compelled by something bigger than herself. and made the ultimate sacrifice for it. But I actually, one of my best gifts, my husband got me a locket that has Joan of Arc on the front, and on the back it says, I am not afraid. I was born to do this.
And last one is, how would you define success?
Success is it's being able to see that people live a more comfortable life because they met me. And that includes my family. And I know you want a short answer, but I got to tell you this really quick. My husband, I told you, was the child of a single parent who'd never had a corporate job with a lot of benefits. And until my husband was in his 30s, he had the same nightmare whenever he would get a fever. And it was of basically the Monopoly man holding out his hand saying, give me more, give me more, give me more. And it was because he was so afraid of financial impoverishment because they were always on the brink of it. And this career, as I became successful in this career, my husband stopped having that dream. And to be able to give a gift like that to anybody, because I do think that I've got, and I know because I've got some other clients who feel that way, but to be able to give that gift to somebody is the best thing in the world.
Lovely.
I love it. I love it. All right. So, Suzanne.
Yep.
We can finish in a better way. Suzanne, do you have anything else for us?
Well, Laurie, just keep inspiring others. And if you're out there and you know somebody who's under 40 or 40 and under, please nominate yourself or get other people involved. And please also consider getting into leadership and following in the footsteps of the greats, because we need you.
Oh, I appreciate that so much, Suzanne. I really do. It's really been lovely to be with the two of you. I thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Miss Laurie. Thank you. Thank you, Suzanne. You guys are always wonderful. And so I'll close this out if we're okay. Yes. Yeah. Wonderful. So thanks everyone for tuning in to Advisor Today podcast. I promise that I'm going to ask Laurie one more round. Laurie, we'd love to have you come back and head part two.
You bet.
The surface or scratch the surface of what her greatness and grace is. And so with that being said, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate everyone where we come together for the betterment of the good and uplift the opportunity for us to be better for us and our clients and for us collectively together. Thank you for tuning in to Advisor Today's podcast. We'll see you next week. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thanks for joining us for NAIFA's Advisor Today podcast series. Make sure to subscribe to get future episodes. And if you're interested in coming on the show, let us know.